Her brother is in hospital in Virginia. Okay. Lynn and Randy, I suppose, I think they're both retired, so they can stay down there as long as they need to be with him. Okay. So we don't know. They don't know. As of an hour ago, last time I heard, that he's still in the hospital. So we just pray for that situation. Pray for Patsy. She's going through radiation treatments. Pray for healing from the cancer. Anybody else with questions? Prayer requests? Okay, pray for Miss Joe's son Randy. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. 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 Hope they had a great time. Pray for safety. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody have a request? Charlie, we leave some prayer. All right. I'm going to go with the lesson that I went over with the kids. And if you all have questions on this, we've been talking for the last. Michelle, you haven't been here the last couple weeks. But for the last few weeks, we've been talking about Joseph. We interpreted the dream for Pharaoh, and there's 7 years of plenty in Egypt. Of course, all the land, not just Egypt. 7 years of plenty, and then 7 years of famine. And during the 7 years of famine, all the people were selling everything they had to buy food down in Egypt because God used Joseph to spare everybody, keep everybody alive, so they had plenty of food for everybody. But Joseph's brothers, Jacob sent his brothers down to buy food, and they came down one time to buy food, and they bought enough to go back, and Joseph put their money back in their sacks and sent them back. But he kept Simeon down there as a hostage and said, Simeon's got to stay until your youngest brother comes back. And so the 9 brothers go back to Jacob, and they consume all their food, and after a while they run out of food, and they got to go back to Egypt. And they say, we got to go back, we got to take Benjamin with us. And Jacob says, now he's got 12 sons, 1 daughter. And he says, you can't take Benjamin, the youngest son, with you. No way. He said, if Joseph's gone, and if Benjamin goes down there, if something happens to Benjamin, I will die. And so he said, he can't go. Reuben, the oldest son, turns to his father and he says, I will be responsible for Benjamin. I will take care of Benjamin while we're on this trip. I'll make sure he comes back. Jacob looks at Reuben and he says, I can't trust you. You can't be responsible for him because of something Reuben had done earlier in life. Okay? When I got to that point in the lesson with the kids, what I was going to get to with the lesson is eventually they all get to go back to Egypt, and Jacob feeds them and tells them that he's a brother, shows them, and he says, "You meant it for." They tried to kill him before. They sold him into slavery 20 years earlier. They didn't recognize who he was now. He was like the leader of Egypt, other than the king, and so they didn't recognize him. But they, in the process, my lesson tonight was going to be on, and I got to this eventually. Was Joseph said to his brothers, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good, to save all these people alive," which is true. Joseph understood that, okay? But what I got stuck on with the kids back there, and this is why I'm 10 minutes late getting in here, because most of our kids have no boundaries of what is right and wrong. They're not taught that. Whether it's in their home, school, whoever teaches it. I mean, they can hear it from me once a week, and they can hear it from the Sunday school teacher once a week. But for most people, most of the generation that we have, the kids we have now, don't understand any boundaries of what is right and wrong. Okay, they're taught that they can, if they think they're a rabbit, they're a rabbit. If they're a boy and they think they're a girl, they can be a girl. They can be a girl and they go into girls' bath. A boy can go into a girls'. This happened in Virginia about a year ago. A teenage boy can say he's a girl and go into a girl's bathroom at a high school and molest girls, and the school system doesn't punish him. They just move him to a different school where he can do the same thing in another school. So there's no boundaries of what is right and wrong. Somewhere along the line, these kids had to learn that there's boundaries right and wrong. I kind of went off on the kids back here, but not really gone off. It's the idea, I want them to understand there are boundaries of what is right and wrong. When, I think Miss Joe and Marlon can probably vouch for this, we would get in trouble if we were chewing gum in school, right? Right? Or if you were talking out of turn in class, right? If you talk and you weren't supposed to, and that's not that way it's not that way with the kids today, right, Charlie? There's no level of respect. Why is there no level of respect? Because there's no boundaries of what's right and wrong. Okay? I pointed at one boy and I said, would you steal from your brother? He said, oh no. I said, you shouldn't steal from your brother. He's bigger than you. He'd beat you up, right? One boy said, I've got little siblings. I can steal from them. Is that okay for me to steal from them? What? Okay. The idea of kids not knowing that it's wrong to lie. Kids not knowing that it's wrong to steal. Boy, John, God puts it in their heart. God puts it in their heart, and then they're taught that there's no boundaries. Okay? If that's money, I gave an illustration. I pulled a $5 bill out of my wallet, set it on the table, and I said, for 40 years I've taught the same lesson, that I could set money on the table, walk out of the room, and trust the kids that are in the room not to take my money. Right? I don't know tonight. With the kids we have tonight. But John, is it kids that grow up in church? Kids that grow up in church or kids that come on the bus, doesn't make a difference. Can you trust them? Jacob was a godly man. He looked at Reuben, his own son. He'd raised him. And says, unstable as water, thou shalt not excel. You are unstable as water. And and Reuben says, I will take care of Benjamin, Jacob looked at him and says, I don't trust you to take care of him. So it's not just a generation of today's kids, but these kids got to get this somewhere. They got to understand that there is right. Okay, we're talking to grandparents here tonight. Miss Joe, Gracie's got to know when you say no, it means no. Okay? Marlon, when your grandkids, if you say no, the answer's no. There's no back talk, no arguing. Or, Brother John, to kids today are different. Your right and wrong hadn't changed. You know, God's the same. He hasn't changed. Do we back talk him and mock him? Okay. Do we back talk our parents? Some. Do we back talk the police officers? Yeah, we can't go to jail for it now because the police officers get more trouble for correcting somebody that's doing wrong. Okay. School teachers a lot of times can get in trouble for correcting kids that are wrong. Right, Charlie? By correcting them. There was a survey. There was a thing. It was a thing in the news last week about we disproportionately expel or suspend children in the state of West Virginia because they were black or because they were poor. Or did you hear that survey, Charlie? Or okay, just like all the other surveys. Okay. We disproportionately, okay, if that's the case, then if this child is behaving himself still, and this child is throwing paper wads across or throwing books across the room, we can't discipline that child. Why? Because we've eliminated the boundaries of what is right and wrong. We took the 10 Commandments off the wall. We said we kicked God out of school. We tell the kids they came from monkeys, so they might as well go ahead and act like one. We teach them they came from animals, so they might as well go ahead and act like an animal. Okay? So when they do, we shouldn't have to correct them. Because they're doing exactly what we've told them to do. Okay? It doesn't matter whether it comes from the school system or from cartoons, what they watch. Some of the cartoon stuff, we flipped through with Josiah watching a couple things. Like, no, we're not going to watch that. I don't want you to watch that. Why? Because it's teaching. There's no rules of right and wrong. Okay? Any questions on this? Am I the only one who sees this? Is this just me, Brother John? Uh, um, huh? That's everything that goes with the school. I have done that on my sales job. It's been several years since I went to public school for a school activity to be with other ball games. But to go in for it, to go into a program at school or something like that, I've done that years ago, or to go with some kids from here that are in school, and I'm supposed to go pick them up or do something with them. Somewhere along the line, those boundaries got to be redrawn, at least for the kids we know. Okay, at least for that's the right way. Some people discipline their children, but then they would never discipline their grandchildren. I like the idea that the boundaries at our house hadn't changed. The rules that my grandparents had for my dad about not crossing 21, which I didn't even know they called it 21 at the time. I don't know if they routed the numbers like that on the highway, but the rule of not going across 21 was when he was a little boy. I had the same rule when I was a little boy. Okay, when I was Josiah's age, me and Roger crossed 21, and I got whooped for doing it. Okay, going over to see Mr. Christie's pony, I got whooped for doing it. The rule was you didn't cross the road. Okay, and the rule was you didn't walk out where the white fence is at. When they're little, Jason's age, Josiah's age, you couldn't go out on 20. Couldn't go on 21. You couldn't go out in the holler. I like the idea that the rule was the same in our house now, and we got the same for Jason Josiah. So that's 1, 2, 5 generations that I know of that had the same rule. I like the idea of having rules, okay? Because if not, you have chaos, okay? Okay. If you have chaos, then you have kids that grow up to be like Reuben, and the father says, "I can trust you." Then Judah stepped up, and he said, "I will be responsible. I will be responsible for Benjamin. If not, we'll all start." And Jacob sent Benjamin because Judah said, "I will be responsible for him." Okay? And he was. Okay? Then Joseph revealed himself to his brothers. And he said, "You meant it for evil, and God meant it for good." And everything worked out for them. Okay? And they all lived. They all got fed. They're all taken care of. But somewhere along the line, and this just it eats at me. Okay? We had a guy who used to work for us a couple years ago. He liked to text on his phone, be on his phone all the time. He worked in the warehouse. Miss Joe, you can come out a stairway up where the offices are, and you look down into the warehouse. And the guy's supposed to be pulling boxes off the shelf, put them on a pallet. Okay? But instead of texting. And if you walked out and shut the door and he saw you, instead of staying here in that hour where he was texting, you go over here. Well, you couldn't see him because of the shelves. And he said, "I'll text over here." And wouldn't do his work. He's getting paid to work. We hired him because he's related to somebody, because his mom is a friend of somebody, whatever. But he said, "Well, I don't have to work." Okay? Somewhere along the line, we've lost it. I want our kids to get there. You probably think someone will look back here tonight, just look at me like there's something wrong with me. Okay? You're an ogre. No, I want you to do right. I want you to have an abundant life. Jesus said, "I might have life to have more abundantly." The life is eternal life through Christ. And the abundant life is going down that straight and narrow road and staying on it. And having an abundant life, have a really, really good life. Okay? Any questions on that? Anybody think I'm off? Okay. Okay. That's the lesson for the kids. Let's switch to our lesson. We've got about 10 minutes left. 1 Timothy, if you will. This all goes along with the rest of the lesson we just gave the kids. But I feel like I had to get that out to the kids tonight because it's foreign language to them. Okay? Last week we went to 1 Timothy chapter 6. We'll read a couple verses. "Let as many as servants are under the yoke count their own masters as worthy of all honor, that the name of God and his doctrine be not blasphemed." That means you work when you're supposed to be working. Verse 2, "They that have believing masters, let them not despise them because they're brethren." That means you work hard for your brother in Christ when you're working for them. Okay? Look down verse 6. We're going to skip through. Some of this was last week, and I'm way out of time. Verse 6. "But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. Last week we talked about people that demand more of their masters, not workers, not owners demanding more of their servants, but kids. Servants demanding of their masters, which is it's a worldly philosophy, saying I deserve better. You should treat me better mentality. Like the boss owes me, the person invested in the company owes me, but he doesn't really. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 14, in all labor there is profit. Okay, but at one point, okay, look up this way for a second. Is there a difference between being content and being lazy? Okay, where do we draw that line, Charlie? I'm going to look at some verses in Proverbs for this, okay? Because to me this is really big. Because this goes along with kids that have no boundaries, think everything's owed to them, okay? 15 years ago, we were in a church bus going on a little trip somewhere, and that's when everyone had flip phones back then, not the iPhones. And there was a boy sitting right behind me, he had a flip phone, and he was flipping it. And one of his friends sitting beside him says, "Don't keep doing that, you're going to break it." He said, "I don't care. Go buy me another one." It was a $300 phone, whatever it was, with a lot of money at the time. And it's okay. I can break it. They'll buy me another one. If I break the phone, I'm tired of this one anyway. That, 6 months old or whatever. The phone's been 6 months. Okay. If I just break it, someone will buy it. That's not contentment. Okay. Okay. Let's read on. Okay. I want to. Content is having food and raiment. Okay. Look at this way. How many people can go on? Anybody in this room, we can do this, and this doesn't include those of you who work and you're retired. You don't have to work. Okay, don't have to work. But we all know that there's people that can go get food and raiment and clothing and housing, and it's all being taken care of and never had to work a day of their life, right? And we know people that have done that. I've met them. I've been around them enough to know they choose not to work. That's not content. Okay. It's a lazy, some government owes it to me mentality, okay? Or you're working, so you owe it to me because you got an income, okay? But I've never met anybody that lives that way that's happy. I've never met a lazy person that's content, okay? I've met a lot of people that work really hard and have absolutely nothing, okay? The world will look at them and say they're broke. And they look around their life and they've worked hard all their life. They don't have anything financially wise. There's no money in the bank. They get by, whatever. I'll use this illustration. A couple that we knew down in Virginia, they worked hard all their life. They lived on a farm. They raised all their food. He sold eggs. He sold ham. He sold chickens, and he sold different things off the farm. But if someone said, "How much money you got in the bank?" He said, "I probably don't have an account." He probably has enough money to pay his light bill, but he didn't burn a lot of electricity. Didn't you? If I remember right, I don't even think they had a refrigerator in their home. Everybody, John, how long ago was this? About 32 years ago. I don't think they had a refrigerator. Okay, I know they had electricity, but they were content as could be. Were they lazy? No, they were just different. I asked them one day when summer it was really dry. People were watering their gardens until there's nothing left and no water coming out of the water hose. And I said, how come your gardens do as well? I said, how much you water your garden? He said, "Ain't my job to water it." He said, "God waters it for me." Okay? So he never put water on his garden. He had corn taller than anybody else, more productive garden than anybody I'd ever seen. Okay? But he worked hard every day. He was really, really content. Okay? Within the same family, I saw family members of his that were lazy, that weren't content. Okay? There's a big difference between the two. Let's turn to Proverbs. Look at a couple verses. Okay? Proverbs. I'm way off track, but I want to get to this. Laziness is not contentment. Most discontented people in America are lazy. Okay? Job opportunities are there, they just don't take it. Job opportunities. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 11. Wealth gotten by vanity shall be diminished, but he that gathers by labor shall increase. Okay? There's always profit. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 23 across the page. In all labor there is profit, but the talk of the lips tendeth only to penury. I mean, you just talk about work and don't work, and it never works out. There's no profit in it. Okay? Proverbs chapter 23. Because why do we work? Why do we labor? To feed ourselves? Labor not to be rich. Seeds from the unknown wisdom. It's not about having money in the bank, even though we should supply for it. Proverbs says a good man provided for his children's children. We're supposed to lay up for our children's children that they have some kind of inheritance. But it's not just about working just so we can have stuff, more stuff. Okay, and labor not to be rich. It should be your goal. Okay, look at Proverbs 21. Scatterbrained on these verses because I've got run out of time. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 25 says this: the desire of the slothful killeth him, for his hands refuse to labor. He coveteth greedily all the day long, but the righteous giveth and spareth not. Okay? If I get that right, if we read that right, there are people that are lazy and always wanting something, but they're afraid to go work for it. It's just, there's a line in the streets. I should be slaying the streets. There's a line without. I can't go outside and work. It's too cold to plow, so I won't plow my garden. Okay? Yeah, I can't work. Making up excuses of why they can't work. Okay? The desire of the slothful killeth him, for his hands refuse to labor. He coveteth, he's always greedy, always wanting something. Brother John, I thought rich people were greedy. According to this verse, a lot of times it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, you can be greedy. He coveteth greedily all the day long, but the righteous giveth and spareth not. So you can have somebody else that is a righteous person that understands, go back to the lesson with kids, that understands there's the boundaries of what's right and wrong, and they can give, and they can give, and they give. And the Bible says, giving it should be given unto you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, so shall be given to your bosom. If you give, God says, I'll give back to you. Okay? And I'll bet good people that have nothing, and they give away what they have. And like Jesus gave the illustration of the people casting money in the offering, and here's where the disciples, and Jesus made note of the widow that cast in 2 mites, because others had given they've given of their abundance. She gave all she had. The 2 little pennies, the 2 little pieces of coin that she had. That's all she had. She gave it. Okay? Any questions on this? Anybody think I'm off? How often does this work, Brother John? Every time it's tried. It works. Every time you try, if you're bound and determined to do the right thing, it always works out. Okay? Just like Joseph. We'll go back to the story of Joseph. When his brothers sold him into slavery, they meant it for evil. Okay? And he came back because he was doing right. He came back to them 20 years later when they came down to buy food from him. And he said, you meant it for evil, God meant it for good. God works out for the good if our intentions and our actions are right. If our intentions are just talking about something, there's no work to it. We don't get it done. Okay? In the sales business that I'm in, a lot of people like to talk. I have to do. I can't just talk. I like planning, and we're planning work and stuff. We're planning work our plan. But I can't just plan the work and not do it because something inside of me has to go. Okay? I have to do the work. Questions? Comments? Okay, let's pray. Thank you, Lord, for loving us. Help us be the Christians we ought to be. Forgive us when we come short. Please use us for your glory this week. Help us be the witness for Christ. In Jesus' name, we ask. Okay, y'all, I need your help. I just saw Jared and Jonathan go. They've been working on the bus for a few minutes. So I saw them go through there. We'll need you at the back door just a minute. Once I get them together. I need strong guys to lift something. It's easy.